T. Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Can't wait for you to meet Miss T. She is the T in T.
And welcome back. Okay, so check this out. One of the hardest questions that I find for most people to answer is, what do you want? Now, when you ask a kid that question and they're not encumbered by things like insecurity or, the weight of responsibility, it's easy. And you typically get answers like, I want some ice cream, I want a puppy dog, I want a skateboard, I want a new doll. Or, if you're like my grandkids, you want me to buy more points on some app that they need to design their new house in or something like that. But truly for adults, I think that we can get so entangled in what we have the ability to do that we stop talking about the things that seem impossible but push you into a realm of faith, a realm of believing for bigger and for more, and you settle into a place of static or constant or consistent that's not necessarily getting you the things that you really truly want, but you settle. And so, many years ago, I had a mentor ask me that question. And, he asked this question on the other side of, me being in the thick of a divorce. And I was, married and partnered with this individual since we were 18 and 19 years old. And, fast forward 20 plus years later, that's all is this person and what they want. And then kids, I had 3 young kids at the time. And so I could tell you what they wanted. But I had so lost myself in the process of being a wife in a tumultuous marriage, being a mom and a dad, to these 3 kids that I was raising, that it was very difficult for me to structure a sentence to tell you what I want, because it was rarely for several years about what I wanted. In fact, it was most often not about what I wanted. It was about what everybody around me needed. And so that was a really hard question for me. But what it helped me see is I'd arrived to a point in my life where I had lost myself. I lost my dreams and goals, the ones that I had, when I was a kid. And I said, when I grew up, I wanted to be this. Like, I'd lost all of that. And the possibility of all of that is like I not only lost the list, but I also lost the hope and the possibility that was attached to the things that were on that list. And so now, fast forward, I have this organization and practice and mentorship pipeline where I'm constantly asking people what they want, but also helping them reconstruct the lists of what they want and the action steps to get to it. Because somebody did that for me by asking that one simple question: what do you want? Now, when I get that, some feedback from people, I hear most often what they can do based on what they have. But I don't know that that is the right thing to propel you into your greatest potential, your wildest success, or your largest destiny, the picture of that or the living of that. And I think if I could get you, my viewer, to a place that even if you have abundance, I promise you there's more. Even if you're living a life that you like, I promise you that there's a life that you will absolutely love. Even if you're living a life of, wow, I'm doing okay, I promise you that there is a life of extravagance and lavishness that you haven't even scratched the surface of, unless you allow yourself to grow to the place where what you want is greater than where you're at. And so my hope today is that we can kind of delve into that. Now, I've started practices that help me do this want thing. And it's not because, I'm greedy. It's because I want growth. And I believe that sometimes there's a mistake that can be made in understanding the difference between the two of those, because I'm far from a greedy human, but I am a human that really likes growth, not just for myself, but growth for the people that are around me, growth for the people that I encounter, sometimes just once, and then growth for the people that I am tasked to mentor until they cross the finish line of whatever it is that they're trying to cross the finish line of. And so having an understanding of what you want that's beyond your current capabilities, it it strengthens you, it strengthens your imagination, and then it gives you the ability to strive, reach, and attain more for whatever the necessity is for more is for you. And so I wanted to share, just a couple of ways that I keep track of myself and keep track of, what I want from this life. And you know me, I'm a huge fan of write it down. And so, I went over reset in my reset podcast. I went over some of the tools that I use to build out, my year, my day, my time. But in that podcast, I talked about some of my journals and my lab book and things like that. So if you haven't watched it, make sure you jump in that just so you can get some detail and how to set this thing up, because I'm going to refer to them now. In building a want list, I started 1 year with what I call my lab book, because I was so challenged with being able to articulate what I wanted, because I could tell you again what my kids want, what my husband wanted. I could tell you all of that, but I couldn't tell you what I wanted because I didn't know what I wanted. I was so confused. And it was a frustrating question for me, to be ultra transparent with you. I think I cried because I couldn't answer that question. I didn't know who I was supposed to be, and I certainly didn't know how to just be me for me. I knew how to be somebody for everybody, but I didn't know how to be someone for me. And I think that comes when you experience trauma, that comes when you experience abuse, that comes when you experience rejection, repeated rejection from people that are supposed to love and accept you and support you the most. And so when you live a life or a lifestyle or a season of that, it can bury you in the process. And so again, when someone asked me the question, I started crying because I couldn't answer the question. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I like. I don't know how to answer that question. And I'm mad at myself because I can't answer you right now, because I should know. And I didn't. And so I started with a lab book. This is what I call my lab book. And I made a list of 150 things. And I gave myself that number because I knew that it would stretch me and it would force me to investigate interiorly, but it would also force me to try new things, because I had changed in the process of 20 years of being a wife and a mom and a daughter and a business owner. I had changed, and I didn't even know how much I had changed, because I never spent enough time with myself to learn those sorts of things. And when I built the list, it started with, simple things like, what do you want? And I remember one of the first things putting on that list is I wanted a quarter. I wanted someone to give me a quarter, like a coin. I want 25 cents. Now, could I have gotten more than that? Certainly. Absolutely. Yes. But that was my way of starting. I started also with, what flavor of gum do I like? Like, what kind of gum do I want? And I don't even chew gum, but I tried different ones to find out which one was the one that I wanted. And it's not spearmint, I'll tell you that. Oh, I don't like it. I also put on the list, I wanted a cereal. I, I grew up in poverty, and milk was a luxury, especially in a household where there's a single mom raising 6 growing children. So one of the things that we would run out of frequently was milk. And when there's no milk, there's probably, not a lot of ability to have cereal. And so I wanted cereal. And so what cereal did I want? And so I started on the journey of trying different cereals. And I learned that, number one, I didn't even like it. Number two, I didn't like it with milk. And so I started eating cereal. No, I canceled that. I think I did. I liked Raisin Bran. I did. I liked the Raisin Bran, and I liked the Raisin Bran with yogurt. And so I would put yogurt in a bowl, and then I would put the Raisin Bran cereal on it, and that's what I wanted. And I would eat that, and it would be very delicious, and I enjoyed it very much. But I didn't have that moment of discovery until I started going down a list of things that I wanted to discover what I want, because I didn't know. And then, of course, the list grew. The wants grew. And why? Why did the list grow and why did the wants grow? Because I started to grow. And if your want list does anything at all for you, it should do this one key core thing. It should cause you to grow. And so some of my wants started to get bigger and I had to stretch further, and I had to work a little harder in order to reach them. And I started out with a list of just 30 things, and that was really hard to come up with, like really hard, simple things. It's grown to about 150 things, and I revisit this list pretty regularly, just to make sure I'm not flatlining in my dreams and goals. Like anything that flatlines is dead. So if I've settled in a place, I don't do well with that. And so I like my peaks. I like my peaks. And even if I experience some valleys in between, the valleys should bring me to the place that props me right back up to a higher peak. And so I really work hard to make sure that my list of wants is growing so that I continue to grow. So I'll share just a couple with you as I built out, some other lists, some other things that I started to add is I wanted to be on a Forbes list. And I remember the year that it was 2017 that I wrote that, on a want list. That's something I really wanted. I had been doing entrepreneurship and business for so many years. One of the highest accolades that you could get from your peers is to be placed on one of these financial lists. It shows a couple of different things. To me, it meant that one, I was doing good business. Two, I was making money doing good business. And three, I was impacting and influencing people positively through my business. And so fast forward to 2021, the end of 2021, I actually landed on a Forbes list, but that's something I put on my want list, and I was stretching for it because I promise you, when I put that on the list, I was nowhere near anything that looked like Forbes ready or Forbes capable. But I put it on my want list, and I'll be darned if I did not grow to the place where I could qualify for something like that. And I did. Another thing that I put on there, one of my older want lists as I was growing was vacations with my family. Again, growing up, impoverished, growing up, being a parent at a young age, there's some things that you just sacrifice. And that vacation time was something that we often had to in order to make ends meet. And so I wrote down some specific vacations that I wanted to take my kids on, just to celebrate the tough that we went through, and to celebrate, how they're just troopers, just good kids. And so I wrote those things down on my list, and we got to achieve them like times 50 by way of magnitude and experience, and then, global positioning. Like before, it's like, okay, I live in California, maybe we could hit Disneyland. And that grew to, private island that Disney owns on an amazing cruise, et cetera, et cetera. And so the experiences kept getting bigger as I kept documenting a want list and continued to grow. And I find that when you build want lists, I do put things on there that are specific just to me, but there are things that I want for the people around me, and there are things that I want for people that I may never meet, but they may meet one of my products or one of my programs or one of my organizations. And so I put wants on the list for them. And I put things like, I want to give vehicles away to college, to high school graduates that are going away to college and other places, so that they have, transportation sometimes is the weapon between you scaling up in life and you staying in your 10-mile radius or staying on your block. And I knew how hard it was for me to pursue, academics or a college experience without a car. And so that's something I have on my want list. I want to give cars away. Now, I don't want, you got to put some parameters in place so that people, don't harm themselves with it, and they have the ability to sustain, the maintenance of it. But really, truly, that's something I want to do. Another thing is I want to give scholarships away so that people like me that grew up as single, raising kids, trying her best, could have funding or food, just the stuff that she needed, that these women or men that are raising kids singularly, or grandmas, I have like grandparents that are raising their kids, but they have what they need to be able to, not only pursue higher education, but also have their basic needs met. So that's something that's on my want list. Another thing that's on my want list is scaling my organizations to different parts of the world where people are not inclined to go. I think rural and deficited and under-resourced and tech-starved communities seem to be my vein, and in how I build my companies and how my heart tugs me. So having, the scalability to specific cities on my want list is very important. And so I keep things that keep others in mind on my want list as I'm building out my 150, even helping other people build businesses. That's number 65. I think that entrepreneurship is super important. I think it changed my whole life. It empowered me in a way that I could build the lifestyle that I dreamt of, as a kid, but also help other people build their lives. And it's challenging because you're the owner. And it's a lot of responsibility, and you have to deal with failure and rejection with the victories and the wins and the successes. But helping other people do that, I think it was an answer for me, and I think it could be an answer for other people. So that's on my want list too. So again, super simple. It can start with a simple list. You don't have to use a lab book like I use a lab book. You can just get like some notebook paper and write the stuff down. And this is not something that I have in my lap every day, but this is, and this is. And so what's in my want list, I also keep in my journal, my little journal, and this is my pocket journal, and I can pull it out and add things to it and update this guy and update this guy. And this is my daily planner. Again, when I went over resets, these are my tools. I also keep my want list in here, and I keep something in my planner, which is what I reference throughout the day, every day. I keep my big 10. So I have 10 things that I want for my life, so that when this is all said and done, and my time on this planet expires, I will have checked the box of these big 10. And I keep those in front of me. So these are the 10 things that I want. They're the things that I want for my life. They're also the things that I want from this life. And so I keep those in front of me all the time. And you don't have to go as ginormous as I do as you're getting started, but this is definitely the place you want to graduate to. You want to graduate to the place that you're thinking legacy, that you're thinking decades, that you're thinking as you exhaust this life on this planet, did you tap every potential that you were born with? Did you tap all the excess that you're entitled to based on experiences and education? Did you tap everything that you could possibly be in who you could be for whoever else that you encounter with? Did you explore all the inventions, all the ideas, all the things? And that's what you want to, start thinking in the direction of as you grow with this want thing. And then, I'm a huge fan of keeping it simple. I write things down, and then I write simple things down. There are things that I just, genuinely enjoy. And so I make sure that I'm making time to do those want things. And so as you're building your want list, and you have your list, now I want you to stamp some time on when you get to have these things or participate in these things. And so giving yourself windows of time to experience the things that you want, I think is super critical. It's one thing to have a list, but it's another thing to give yourself permission to do the things on your list. And so when I have, my handy dandy planner, I make sure that I am putting these things on the calendar. For example, one of the things that I want to do, that I've always wanted to do and that I get to do, I like harvesting seashells from the Atlantic and from different parts of the world with bodies of water. For whatever reason, I just like it. It's fun for me and I enjoy it. And so I make sure that I plan time to do those things. So as you're building your want list, date time stamp some of this stuff. Do you want this in a year? Do you want this in a month? I wanted multimillionaire status. I gave myself a block of time to achieve that, or to strive to have that, or cross the finish line of that. There's nothing in the rule books that says you can't want what you want and have what you want by a set time. And I think if you're doing this want list, maybe you should put some timelines to some of the things that you want, and watch how quickly you grow, and watch how these things manifest, and how quickly you cross the finish line and they come to you, or the people with them come to you. So being intentional about it. And I'll land with this, you want what you want. You want what you want. So as you're building your want list and you're starting to achieve this stuff, I want to warn you with two things. One, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. I put on there that I wanted a house. What I didn't know that came with the house is all this responsibility. So I'm not saying don't want the house. I'm just saying be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. And that's not a bad thing. Second is be very mindful who you share this list with. I have made the mistake of sharing my want list, my dream list, my big 10, my goal list with people, one, who have never been where I'm trying to go. and have offered commentary that has caused me to get insecure about what I have on my list. Also sharing with people that are so happy where they're at that they're not looking to grow forward, and they will sometimes anchor you with a statement, and I had family members that would do, what do you want that for? That's a lot. Why do you need that? That's selfish. What are you going to do that for? Because I want it, you little weirdo. Get off my list. So my point in warning you is share strategically. Your want list, your dream list, your goal list, those should all be shared with people that have the ability to maybe contribute to you getting closer to these things, or people that can pull you up into these things. It's rare that you share these things linearly, or it's a downgrade share. It's rare that those sorts of shares get you closer to your wants. And so I'm just asking you to just be very mindful in your process of sharing this stuff. And then again, just be mindful what you ask for. You be mindful because once you write it down, that you're giving it permission to become. That's the first step in making something permanent, is putting it on paper with a pen. And so the moment you do that, what you've just did is you've just told the universe, I give this permission to be. And so I asked for this career, and sometimes it's really intense, and it's loaded with responsibility, and it's a lot of pressure, and it's really hard. But I remind myself, it's what you said you wanted. And so just refrain from complaining. Complaining means remaining. And the moment you start complaining about what you want because it's presented itself to you, that's the easiest way for it to escape your grip. And you do not want that. So just make sure that you remind yourself by looking at your list like, oh, I said I wanted this. And don't let that make you afraid to put anything on the list. Just as you're asking for things that you want, attach to that the maturity and the responsibility necessary to have these things, maintain these things, sustain these things, and grow these things. So I hope this empowers you to make your list and go forward and build your life, architect the world you want, and live in it and enjoy it. If you like this, if this helped you, if you know that this is going to help somebody else, make sure you like it, share, subscribe, leave some comments. I love knowing what, people in our community are doing, especially those that are striving forward and upward. And if you have something on your list that you want to share, or you want to know what's on my list and you want me to share, leave a comment. This is not something that I'm doing just because I want to do it. This is something I'm doing because I want us to do our it. So thank you for tuning in, and I'm so excited to see you again right here on Sweet Tea.